The Giants of Jotun-heim. As we have already seen, the northern peoples imagined that the giants were the first creatures who came to life among the icebergs, which filled the vast abyss of Ginnungagap Gap. These giants were from the very beginning the opponents and rivals of the gods, and as the latter were the personifications of all that is good and lovely, the former were representative of all that was ugly and evil. He comes, the frost spirit comes on the rushing northern blast, and the dark Norwegian pines have bowed as his fearful breath went past. With an unscorched wing he has hurried on, where the fires on Hekla glow, on the darkly beautiful sky above and the ancient ice below. By J.G. Whittier. When Ymir, the first giant, fell lifeless on the ice, slain by the gods, his progeny were drowned in his blood. One couple only, Bergelmir and his wife, effected their escape to Jotun-heim, where they took up their abode and became the parents of all the ice giants since. In the north, the giants were called by various names, each having a particular meaning. Jotun, for instance, meant the Great Eater, for the giants were noted for their enormous appetites, as well for their uncommon size. They were fond of drinking as well as eating, wherefore they were also called thyrses, a word which some writers claim to have the same meaning as thirst, but others think they owed this name to the high towers or tresses, which they were supposed to have built. As the giants were antagonistic to the gods, the latter always strove to force them to remain in Jotun-heim, which was situated in the cold regions of the pole. The giants were almost invariably bested in their encounters with the gods, for they were heavy and slow-witted, and had nothing but stone weapons to oppose to the Aesir's bronze. In spite of this inequality, however, they were sometimes greatly envied by the gods, for they were thoroughly conversant with all knowledge relating to the past. Even Odin was envious of this attribute, and no sooner had he secured it by a draught from Ymir's spring than he hastened to Jotun-heim to measure himself against Vafthrudnir, the most learned of the giant brood. But he might never have succeeded in defeating his antagonist in this strange encounter had he not ceased inquiring about the past and produced a question relating to the future. Of all the gods, Thor was most feared by the Jotuns, for he was continually raging war against the frost and mountain giants, who would fain have bound the earth forever in their rigid bands, thus preventing men from tilling the soil. In fighting against them, Thor, as we have already seen, generally had recourse to his terrible hammer, Mjolnir. Origin of the mountains. According to German legends, the uneven surface of the earth was due to the giants, who marred its smoothness by treading upon it while it was still soft and newly created. While streams were formed from the copious tears shed by the giantesses upon seeing the valleys made by their husbands' huge footprints. As such was the Teutonic belief, the people imagined that the giants, who personified the mountains to them, were huge, uncouth creatures, who could only move about in the darkness or fog, and were petrified as soon as the first rays of sunlight pierced through the gloom or scattered the clouds. This belief led them to name one of their principal mountain chains the Riesengebirge, or the Giant Mountains. The Scandinavians also shared this belief, and to this day, the Icelanders designate their highest mountain peaks by the name of Jökull, a modification of the word Jotun. In Switzerland, where the everlasting snows rest upon the lofty mountain tops, the people still relate old stories of the time when the giants roamed abroad, and when an avalanche came crashing down the mountainside. They say the giants have restlessly shaken off part of the icy burden from their brows and shoulders. So that was Jotun-heim and the Origin of Mountains, the first sections of Chapter 23 of Myths of the Norsemen by Helene A Guerber, The Giants. I will be working my way through this book section by section, and if there are any other public domain books that you would like for me to read, please leave a comment below. Did you enjoy this video? Then subscribe for more, and be sure to check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. Thank you for listening, and have a lovely evening.